Former Bulls forward Horace Grant says if Miami faced Chicago, they'd get worked. Here's what Grant told WSCR-AM in Chicago. The Heat wouldn't have had a chance. We would have locked them up, especially with the rules today. Michael would have had a field day. Now, we asked you earlier on Twitter how many games the Heat would win versus the 93 Bulls. Here are the results. One game, 81%. 2 games, 3.1%. 3 games, 7.7%. 4 games, 8.1%. All right, guys, we'll put you guys on the hook. 81%, wow. How many games would the Heat win against the 93 Bulls? Ryan, we'll start with you.
You know, I've always said First Take has the most intelligent audience of any show on television, and now I know that is absolutely true because 81% of the audience
Stop sucking up these people out
on
there.
the money there with one game is right. It would now. I'm a little hesitant to say that because look, LeBron James is the kind of guy I'd never count out, and I think sometimes when we do this, we don't look at him enough as we look at everything else in a series and in a matchup because we just look at the Bulls and all we think about, well, they have Jordan, they'll win.
Right.
We never look at LeBron's teams and say, well, they have LeBron, they'll win. But, you know, they've been pretty good. Well, having LeBron on your team has meant pretty good things throughout his career. However, when I look at this matchup, I think I'm going to go a little advanced analytics on you, Freddie.
Look at you.
Yeah, I want to do this for you because this specific matchup, I actually think one thing that helped the Bulls a lot, they were last in pace in 1993. They slow you down. That's how you beat Miami. You know, when you slow a game down, that's a great way to execute against them and to operate against them. And I think that, you know, you can keep them out of transition that way. That's where they get their easy buckets. Michael Jordan, during that, you know, first three-peat, he averaged 33.7 points a game. It was much harder to score in that era than it is today for guards. You're talking about, I mean, just look at the hand check. Watch what guards were able to do defensively then
That wasn't hand
compared to
checking.
now.
That was mugging.
Yeah, exactly.
Seriously.
And you're able to defend then like LeBron is able to in today's age, but nobody else can. That's what you're able to do then.
Wow, that was a shot.
But so Michael Jordan, though, Michael Jordan averaging almost 35 points a game in that time. Can you imagine how much he would score in today's time? And I actually do think that this Heat team, even though it's the worst incarnation of it from these 3 years, and we're talking about this Heat team versus the 93 Bulls, I still think they probably have better role players than that Bulls team did. I think that you would have, you know, you take Bosh over Horace Grant. I think you would take Ray Allen before you take anybody else off that Bulls bench. But I'll take Jordan in his prime and Pippen in his prime versus LeBron in his prime and Wade not in his prime. I think the Pippen-Wade difference is a big difference, too, when you're looking at those specific years. That's Pippen as good as he gets. Right now, Dwayne Wade, none of us would say that about. So I think it's a few things. First and foremost, the Bulls stylistically, I think, could play with them. Secondly, I think we have no idea just how much of a beast Jordan would be playing in this era. And then also, I think the difference in the Robin of both of those teams being in his prime or not would swing the Bulls' way. And I think they take care of business in 5. Besides, Freddie, when Jordan plays a finals matchup, he doesn't go 7.
6
okay?
and 0.
He does not lose, and he does not go 7. And I'll give the Bulls the respect of saying it would only go 5.
Well, you use analytics. I'm going to use peoplelytics when it comes to this series between the Heat and the Bulls.
You make me seem like a nerd when you say that, man.
I will confirm nor deny. Let's put it that way. No, he's not a nerd as far as we know. No, I think they would have gotten 2 games.
Yeah.
But I still think the Bulls would have won. To your point about role players, I'm going to give you the guys that at any given time, whether it's LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, would have had to deal with on the front line for the Chicago Bulls from that 91-93 team. Cliff Levingston, a big guy. Stacey King, not a good defender, but still a big guy. Bill Cartwright, Will Perdue, Scott Williams. The smallest guy among those guys was Stacey King, and Cliff Levingston at 6'8". You can't teach height. And if you're that kind of goaltending team, and as good and underrated defensively as the Bulls were. People talk about Jordan and Pippen on the outside. On the interior, they really slowed down a lot of teams. Patrick Ewing never was able to have a good series against the Chicago Bulls or any other big man. And I think that would be the one deciding factor. As big as LeBron James is, and believe me, guys like that in a series like that, they're going to have their say one way or the other. It would have been a lot harder for him to get 25, to get 27, because at any given time he's encountering so much height and so much depth along that Bulls front line. And they were so good with Tex Winter on the staff of Phil Jackson of teaching outstanding defense in addition to the triangle offense. One game, they would have gotten 2 because LeBron James would have been able to win 1 game. He'd have been a hard guard for the Chicago Bulls. But on the other side, it would have been much harder to guard 2 guys. in Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen because Dwayne Wade is a good defender. Not now. Who's he going to level off? You can't put him on Michael Jordan. At that point, he might go for 45. But you put him on Scottie Pippen could get 25. We're talking about one of the 50 greatest players in the history of the NBA. I think with all those, and these are the kind of barbershop arguments I don't mind. It's like somebody saying, I'm going to go to a barbershop and start arguing about OJ and leave. That's what this is, as far as I'm concerned. But I look at history and I look at the way teams played. If you wanted to speed up the Bulls, they could get out in transition and they could spread the court with their shooters, whether it's John Paxson or B.J. Armstrong or Craig Hodges. But to your point, Ryan, if you slowed the game down and made it a slugfest, that's exactly how they had to play and how they could win that way, deal with the Pistons and the Knicks all those years.
And if you look at that 93 matchup specifically, the Suns were a team that did get out and run. They were the most offensively efficient team in the NBA that year, and the Bulls still were able to hang with them and beat them in 6 in the finals. Bulls were the second most efficient offensive team that season. So you're talking about the Bulls in a tougher defensive era being a more efficient offensive team than the Heat were this year, and also being able to lock down or beat the best offensive team. So they got defensive when they had to, and they were a top 10 defensive team anyway.